So once again, welcome everybody to InsightLA. And yeah, my name is Trudy. I'm the founding teacher here. I'm welcoming everybody from New Mexico to Oregon to all parts of LA. And this morning, we're going to continue our exploration of the elements of awakening. And I'll do some guided meditation for those of you who are new. Yeah, we do some meditation, which I offer a little bit of guidance. And then we have some teachings and then some chance for questions, reflections from your own practice, of what's happening in your life. And that's really the part that I love, is getting to hear from you. But I'm also really happy to be here and practice together this morning. It's really, as this pandemic wears on and on and on and on, it's becoming more and more important, I think, for all of us to find these times to just to be together and sit together and acknowledge that we're actually here, even though we're not seeing each other the way we used to. We are here, and we kind of affirm that together as we look at our little Zoom tiles and realize, yeah, we're still here. So yes, everybody, find your comfortable sitting posture. And I do a little more guidance on when we're on the Zoom together than when we're in person, because I think it can be more distracting. But the energy of all of us, inclining our hearts, inclining our minds in the same direction, of being as present as we can with experience as it's arising and as it's passing away, that very effort that we make together, it creates an energy that I've been really happy to discover, and I'm sure many of you also have. But I'm really happy to discover that energy actually we can feel it, even though we're not in each other's physical presence. We can feel it in online teaching. And I learned that from former students and now colleagues, Emily and Vincent Horn, who founded Buddhist Geeks. And they were really pioneers of doing a lot of online teaching and retreats. And Emily used to assure me, yes, you can connect with that energetic flow, even online. And so I assure you, we can and we do. So settling into your comfortable sitting posture, I'm going to get the bell, which I forgot. So as you settle into your body, you might just want to take a deep breath in. I developed this habit, actually, of beginning meditation by taking a deep breath in and releasing. And I do this on my own as well as with you. Breathing in. And one more time. Deep breath in. And releasing that breath. And just noticing the ground, the floor, holding you up, the chair, the cushions, wherever the body is resting. And just letting your shoulders drop and your body relax. And tuning lightly into the breath in the body, the temperature of the air, the room. Just opening all the senses. So we're just sitting and being aware of this particular existence that we call ourself, that I call myself, that you call yourself. This simple existence, very real, part of the existence of life. And just appreciating how this particular existence is supported by the elements, the solidity of the earth, the ground, the floor, the chair, the cushion. The sounds of life that appear and have their being and fade away, like the sound of the plane. Noticing the element of heat, of warmth, the heat of summertime, the warmth of the body. These are expressions of the fire element. And then the water element, just feeling the heartbeat, the subtle vibrations of blood circulating in the body. Occasionally swallowing the saliva. tears if they're being shed. Just noticing the water element, the connection of this body to the earth, to the sun, to the flow of nature, the flow of water in nature and in this body. And the air, the breath of air that we breathe in and out. And just feeling the direct relationship between our consciousness and the breath, the air element. You're sitting outside, you may feel the breeze, air in the form of wind or breeze. Always the connection to this movement of the breath in the body. And out of this growing sense of being safely settled in the body and these elements, there can be a deeper relaxing into well-being and opening into a more coextensive awareness. Awareness of space, the space inhabited by the body, the space in the room, in front, behind, to the sides, above and below. This quality of expansive awareness extending past the boundaries of the skin, just extending into the whole space around the body. This quality of expansive awareness develops through mindfulness of this body. And then, whether sitting or lying down, standing or mindfully, slowly walking, begin to get a sense of the body as a fluid energy field, a field of increasingly loving awareness. And just noticing the difference in experience when the mind is lost in thought, inevitably wandering away from now into the past or future. And the quality of experience in those moments when there is strong awareness, just sitting and being aware, very simple, very real, grounded in the body and the elements, and just freeing the mind and heart from being caught in usually pretty unloving ideas about the body, the self, and life sometimes, life itself. Noticing a sense of aliveness that comes with really being here, just simple and real. And this is our practice of presence, realizing it is always only now. Forever and ever, it is always now. And for the last 5 minutes of our meditation together, infusing the mindful awareness that connects us to this moment of now, of here, of aliveness. Infusing that awareness with a little bit of love, a little bit of tenderness, turning toward the body with love can actually heal the loneliness or some of the loneliness of being separated during this time. And bringing this attitude of appreciation and gratitude for this body, for this existence. Connecting fully with this moment of life. This too dissolves the sense of separation. And we can open into that more spacious, coextensive, inclusive embrace of awareness. And it's in this spirit that an 18th century Zen master named Hakuin said, "This one mouthful of reality satisfies an eternal hunger, satisfies the deep loneliness of separation. This one mouthful of alive reality right here, right now, that's available anytime, anytime we connect, tune in, open our hearts to it." And so we've been looking at in the teaching part of our time together, we've been looking at the elements of awakening, the elements of awakening, the arousing, energizing elements of joy and curiosity and interest and the one that we're going to talk about today, which is energy or effort, virya. And then the calming, the more settling elements of awakening, concentration, and tranquility and equanimity, with mindfulness being the fulcrum that balances and recognizes when we're, a little out of balance on one side or the other, the sleepy side or the maybe too active and distracted side. And the element, the quality of effort or energy is really key. I mean, they all work together. But usually I don't know about you, but usually when I hear people talk about effort, I start to feel tired. It just feels like it's going to be asking more of me than I want to give or something like that. But the definition of effort in the classic Buddhist psychology in the teachings is very simple. It refers to the effort to recognize unhealthy, unwholesome, suffering or afflicted states of mind and heart. And then the effort to release those through the different practices that we do. It's 4 efforts. Those are the first 2, to recognize the unwholesome or unhealthy or that which is not going to lead us toward happiness, and to let that go. And then to cultivate, to strengthen, to bring attention to the qualities that are healthy and good for us and that we can see lead us toward more well-being, and then to strengthen those. So those are the 4 classic elements that go with effort. But I also like to think about what it is that brings energy, that enlivens our practice, because that sense of presence, of nowness, of aliveness, of the aliveness of our own existence, this is something that is really always available to us, no matter what state of mind or heart that we happen to find ourselves in. And so I've been thinking, just reflecting on this week, knowing I would talk to you about it, and realizing that for me, the heart of this virya, this it's sometimes translated even as enthusiasm, that kind of joyful effort, that for me, the heart of that is simply returning to this moment right now. It's not the effort to stop thinking, but if the effort in relation to our thinking minds, that is the mind that distracts us and goes into habitual discursive thought loops. I'm not talking about creative thinking when we're in the process of writing or creating, which is very focused thinking. What helps isn't to try to stop what we call the default network falling into that. And it's usually negative thinking designed to help us survive and think of anything bad that might happen. But what really helps isn't struggling with the thinking mind as we meditate or go about the day, but to just stay very aware of this moment right now. And with the increasing awareness of this moment comes, I think, an openness. I find it brings like an openness, that connection with more spaciousness, or the space, focusing on the space in the room instead of just all the objects in the room. We focus on the space of awareness that knows, okay, this is now. This is here, right now. We know this. Very simple, very real. And that ability to return to this basic foundation of our existence, it's so simple we don't believe it's enough. But it is really, this is wise effort to know we're here, to know what we're doing while we're here. And you can look at that in a very specific, concrete way. What is my intention for this morning or this afternoon or this day or this conversation or this teaching with you? Or a bigger sense of what are we doing here. The other day I was out in the ocean, and it was sort of a gray, very gray, soft morning, and there, I wasn't near most of the surfers, but I was kind of floating around. I wasn't really actively swimming, just enjoying being out there. I had seen some dolphins, and so just kind of, I don't know, just being there. And somebody on a surfboard, and I saw a close up. It was a little girl. She was just out there. She couldn't have been more than 10. And she said to me, "What are you doing here?" I laughed. I said, "Well, nothing really. I'm just hanging out here in the water." And I said, "What are you doing here?" I mean, there didn't seem to be an adult with her. There actually was, but that person, I think, was, either on shore in the shallow water, but somebody was watching her. But I didn't see them at the time. I was like, "What are you doing here?" And she said, "I'm surfing. And I'm wading through all these folds," which I guess are the waves that aren't suitable. So there we were. It can be that bigger sense of what are we doing here in this life, or floating around in this ocean that we call our life, or just being aware of, what are we doing in any given moment here, doing or not doing. It doesn't really matter, but the awareness of it does. It matters very, very much. And so this quality of energy, the courage to be present, the effort and the energy that we bring to being present, this has a cumulative effect. The Buddha used very concrete, simple analogies, like the analogy of filling a bucket with water drop by drop by drop. That each moment of presence of mindfulness just fills that bucket. And before we know it, we really are learning to just show up more and more for our life. And I was remembering, I read this book years ago called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, and he was quoting a neurologist, Daniel Levitin, who said it takes 10,000 hours of effort to really become a world-class effort at something. Well, we don't have to achieve the level of mastery that's associated with being a world-class meditator necessarily. But each time we do bring our attention back to being here now, just showing up for our human life, we're also learning to show up in a particular way. And that is with some love and care and heart and balance. And we do this, we're motivated to do this because it just feels better, doesn't it? The feeling of being lost in thought is very flat and very disconnected. And it's a kind of loneliness in and of itself. I sometimes talk about the loneliness of being encapsulated in our thought world. That is a very separated, lonely experience that we all know. And so just recognizing awareness is always here for us when we turn toward it. Haven't you had this experience? I have had this experience so many times of just coming back to being present and having this feeling of, oh, the presence was here waiting for me the whole time. And it's that sense, maybe the sense we have of relief when we come home, assuming we have a house and a home to come to. There is that sense of a kind of relief when we come to it. And the Buddha defined specifically, I have this quote, let me find it. He defined reality and the effort to be present with reality. I took so many notes and I circled so many things. find this. Well, I'm just going to paraphrase it for you because I remember it, of course. But he defined the effort in just knowing what is arising in our consciousness and what is disappearing. You know, what thoughts are present, what thoughts are absent, what feelings are here, what feelings are not here. And that also means appreciating the states of suffering that are not happening in the mind. Even if we might feel sort of neutral or dull or even numb, there can be appreciation for the fact that there isn't a tormenting state happening of, you know, hate or lust or whatever it is that torments us. And learning to do this really helps us also sort of stay in a more appreciative, if not loving stance, even when we're around people who do not share that stance and who may even be, you know, full of hatred for those who wear masks, or those of us who get a surge of anger when people aren't wearing a mask. This is a very simple way that we can track these feelings in our current life in the pandemic. And I want to quote, I had a chance to talk with somebody this week who had received a very frightening diagnosis and a recurrence of a cancer that put them into a stage 4, which is a scary diagnosis to have. And what I was struck by was her determination. She said, "I am committed to life." And this commitment, undaunted by a diagnosis, is helping her stay in that sense of being alive. And of course, there's anxiety and the need to work with that and other things that are coming up. But I get inspired when I meet people who are in a really challenging circumstance and manage to meet that circumstance without being annihilated by it emotionally or mentally. And then I found this quote too from somebody who practiced with me in 2003, somebody who had a disease that caused them to be blind and really had a lot of challenges. And they had this disease for 22 years, but very degenerative situation. And they said, this was a man, he said, "Whenever I focus on my thinking, on what I believe in, I'm living in a mind-created reality. This illness destroyed my mind-created reality and forced me down deeper than my thoughts." So the reality that brought me closest to, he said, God, but we could say truth or aliveness or whatever it is that connects you most deeply to the heart, that this reality happened when I was empty of my beliefs and commitments to the previous memories that I had. This was, for me, a real surrender. And it happened to me because I was forced to find comfort in something that was not created by the mind. So I don't look at spirituality as a practice because that's something that I do. And I would say this is where it connects to what I'm talking about in terms of effort. I'm trying to present a view of effort that it's not so heavily dependent on, you know, my resolve and my determination and I'm going to really be present today. He goes on and he says, spirituality begins where I stop. And the amazing thing is that I stop very often, and so do you. The stopping happens in all of our lives, beyond our thinking. But when we're focused on the I that is thinking, when it stops, we sort of don't even notice it. And so those moments are hard to remember. But children play there regularly. lovers touch those moments in the passion of their lovemaking, and we as meditators dip into them every time that we have a gap between our thoughts and enter into that stillness, whether it's just that fleeting pause between the breaths or the silence that begins to grow as we stay more and more in the nowness, the aliveness, the vividness of our lived experience. So yes, it does require some intentional effort, but it's more of an effort of remembering what is actually always here for us than the effort to create or fabricate or contrive or sustain a particular state of mind that we might think is, this is meditation, you know, this is the real deal, because it feels good. And I think I'll continue probably to talk about this next week because there's so much more to say. But for this time, this morning, this is really some of what I wanted to share with you, and especially with this emphasis on one mouthful of reality relieves that eternal hunger that we carry in our hearts, which I think has been, I don't have to think it, it's been, that eternal hunger has been strengthened and accentuated by living in this more sheltered or quarantined space that we are living in and likely to be in for quite some time, which makes these teachings more important than ever. So this is what I wanted to share with you this morning. And next week, I'll also talk about wise effort, the element of awakening as it applies to more of our social and political and community life together. But today, I just want to focus on just that simple, real practice of the presence that makes any moment richer and more satisfying, so that we can feel that sense of being enough, of being complete as we are, and that our life, just as it is worthwhile, that our existence itself makes us worthy of it. So yeah, this is what I want to share with you this morning. And now we have some time, plenty of time actually, for questions and reflections, Q&R. And our volunteers, who is it this morning, Ran and will call on you if you raise your hand. It's good if you can use the, if you click on the participant function, and then what comes up is a list of participants, and let's see, where is it? Here it is. And then if you, well, mine's different from yours. So your raise hand function should be at the bottom of that. Mine is not, but that's because I'm a co-host. So yeah, if you raise your hand, then we can have, you'll be unmuted, and then we can have some conversation, some dialogue together. And even though only, you know, there's not obviously room for everybody to have a chance to speak, we all learn from each other. I learn from you and what you bring up, and we just learn from what we are each going through as humans in this life. So,
okay, and one more thing, in case you can't raise the hand as Trudy suggested, you could write your question in the chat box. Okay, and we'll be calling in turns, so feel free to raise your hand.
It looks like Tor has a question in the chat. Tor missed the mention of the 4 classic elements of effort. What are they?
Oh, yeah. So they're very simple. The effort to be aware of unhealthy, unwholesome states when they arise in us. And those states can be loosely defined as the things that we know are not leading us in the direction of well-being or happiness. And then the effort to let them go. And then that's the second one. And then the third one is the same thing with regard to positive, healthy, wholesome. The word that's used in the text is kusala and akusala, and translates as healthy or wholesome. The states that we know bring a sense of aliveness and connection and belonging to life. And then the fourth one is the effort to strengthen those when they do arise, to make sure that they arise more often. And those are the ones we want to cultivate and sustain. I think Bob has his hand up. Can somebody unmute Bob Poole?
Hi, Trudy. Thanks. I'm going to be brief because I had some time last week. My mom passed away recently, and the last 5.5 years of her life were really difficult for her mostly, but also for me, my family. It was very consuming at times. A lot of hospitalizations, a lot of trips to the ER, 6 months in hospice. Many times we thought she was dying, but she didn't. And, you know, I'm both very sad and also relieved. And I was reading a novel yesterday that said something that I just associated to that and to what you've been saying, which is the person had been in a caretaking position, and she said, I often resented it, but I've never regretted it. And that's, I had just been thinking those same things, which is that I never felt more alive, even though it was really hard, and I did often resent it, and I did want it to end before it did. And I don't regret it, you know, a minute of it, because the living was intensely rich, and, you know, I'd be incredibly present the many times I thought she was dying.
Yeah.
Or just when we were talking about it, you know, afterwards or before. So I think, to me, that really speaks to what you were saying. So thank you for framing it that way.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that. I'm sorry that your mom had to go through all that.
Thanks. And just one quick thank you for last week. You said, when I was talking about my loving kindness towards certain politicians, that had become rote and kind of almost meaningless in a certain way to me, and you said, don't focus on the words, focus on the feeling or the experience of it. And that's been really helpful. I've been doing that.
Oh, good, good.
And it feels much like how I meditate anyway. I just sort of have not been doing that with that. And so it was really helpful. I appreciate it.
Beautiful, thank you. And, you know, loving kindness for the enemy or the difficult person doesn't mean you have to love them. The whole point is to free your heart from those states of aversion and judgment and hate. Yeah, and it's hard right now.
Okay, we have a question in the chat from Rick, and I don't know if you see it, Trudy. He says, how long is now?
Now is eternal. That's a great question. How long is now? How long is now? I think when we really dive deep into that question, Rick, how long is now? What we discover is, you know, the question of what is time anyway? What is time? And we've heard the expression, there's no time and space, but what does that actually feel like? And I don't know about you, but for me, um, now is timeless. And I guess I would say I'm blessed, although sometimes it's really a hassle to have intense ADD. But the blessing of it is that the sense of time is quite different from the sense of time that seems to animate everyone else around me. And it's a timeless sense. Like even today, Jack is here and he's like, do you know it's 11? And usually I'm here about 5 minutes before, but I lose track of time completely. It's timeless. So I think now is timeless, but you can tell me your experience. You can put it into the chat. Um, if you want to, Rick. And anybody else have a question?
We have Cameron has a question hand up. Go, Cameron.
Hi, thank you very much for the discussion and the practice. I am curious about virya in the sense of when you're in the practice. So getting to the mat is relatively easy for me.
Yeah.
But then actually, it's such a variety of what's going to pop up in terms of like how scattered my brain is going to be.
Sure.
And so I wanted to know if you have any tricks to help increase virya when it's all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me the most important, I don't know if it's a trick, but it's certainly an aspect of mindfulness. So it's a mindfulness trick, we could say, that is to, when those scattered times or the times, and I have those too sometimes, where the other afternoon I sat down to meditate. It was unbelievable. It was like, you'd think this was the first time I ever even tried it. So distracted, so restless, so jumping out of my skin. It's very humbling, to have that experience again. And for me, it's just a reminder, that experience itself, the forgetting of how to be present or how to be still. That's a reminder of what we're doing here. And it's not pleasant and it's not easy. And I think that's why it's called virya, that we have to somehow muster the energy to just hang in and stay there on the mat, on the cushion, whatever it is you're doing, knowing that this is when the teachings of anatta, of selflessness and impermanence are our friend, because it's not personal. You're right. We don't know. We don't get, we don't have an inner announcer like at a train station that says, restlessness arriving on track 2, so we could like get ready for it or something. It just arrives. And so, yeah, I think that's where the intention to just, I'm just gonna ride this out. The Buddha had a very simple teaching for those times. Somebody asked the question, how do I cross the current, the torrent? And that's the metaphor of crossing, a very full river where it's running high. And, but we can think of it as that torrent of thoughts and feelings, right, that we encounter. And he said, by not rushing through it, because you get exhausted by fighting it, trying to force the mind, force yourself. I'm going to focus on the breath. I'm going to come back to the breath. I'm going to, but also not lingering, because then you just sink. And I think for lingering, I would just say sort of like giving up. Okay, it's just, but just by a more balanced, step by step, moment by moment, I can be with this moment. You know how they say 1 day at a time and 12 steps? Sometimes it's 1 moment at a time. So that's what I would say.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Okay, we have another question from Ilana Brooks. Go ahead, Ilana.
Good morning, Trudy.
Hi.
How are you?
Nice to hear your voice.
Nice to see you. Thank you so much for your Dharma talk. That was lovely and helpful. I have a couple, well, so I wanted to ask you because last year you hurt your back. I'm dealing with some pretty intense pain from my car accident. I got in a car accident on the 11th of March, and for some reason I didn't feel the pain until I left Los Angeles. Like I had to leave the city to let my body relax, and now I'm feeling everything. And I was just curious what your, because it's hard to meditate with the intensity of the pain, knowing that it's impermanent, knowing that it'll go away, but it's like, it's just it's something new for me. And I was just wondering if you had any tricks or.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on the intensity of the pain. When I broke my back, there was maybe the first month where the pain was so intense that I had to lie still. Of course, I had to lie still anyway, because that was how I could avoid surgery, was keeping the spine very, very quiet. But I'll be honest with you, when the pain was really severe, I did something that a friend sent me, one of those sort of mandala coloring books with a huge box of all these different colored pencils. And when I got it, I thought, I'm not going to color. Coloring, I don't know. That's just not my thing. I can't ever stay in the lines. But these pencils were very sharp. And actually, what I learned was by focusing on the intricate details and coloring in these tiny little designs, and this is a thing, by the way, it wasn't my personal discovery. I learned that there is something about an activity like that that actually lessens pain. I think it's because the focus is so intense on something else. And there may be other people who want to add to the chat and offer you. But when the pain was very intense, and it was a very mindful, meditative, serene activity of coloring these mandalas. And I remember when Jack came to help me, and he would just see me on the couch lying still, coloring and coloring. Never seen you like this. I was always a whirlwind of activity, you know. So that's one thing I did.
Okay.
You know, I also I did stay very still. And I also worked with a healer, Peter Levine, who invented somatic experiencing.
Okay.
And Peter taught me some techniques to work with pain. So if you are anywhere where you could talk to a somatic experience therapist, SE work can be also very helpful.
Okay, thank you.
And also, do you lie down, or are you trying to sit up? Because you can lie down. Ethy Hitter, who I think is here somewhere this morning, you know, Ethy can't sit. She lies down. And she's been practicing and doing retreats like that for years.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'm sorry you're having pain.
It's okay.
We have a question in the chat from Ethan Montoya. It says, Trudy, why do the teachings say that lust is a tormented state?
Oh, okay. I think that the reason they're distinguishing between just the experience of feeling sexual energy and the feeling of lust, which is a very focused kind of goal-oriented experience. And I think it's because in meditation, when that kind of experience arises, it leads to very constant sexual fantasies that are difficult to disengage from. And so there, I would make a distinction between sexual feelings, which are very pleasant, and we all, you know, enjoy those, hopefully, and lust, which is feeling like we have to do something about it, right? We have to gratify those feelings, and we must. And if you're meditating or trying to, you know, do a mindfulness practice, you can be mindful that you're having a sexual fantasy, but often those fantasies, when they get obsessive and don't stop, can be tormenting. So I think that's why. But you may have some other idea of why, or anybody else wants to, again, chime in on the chat. Please do.
We have another question in the chat from Jake. It's rather long. Trudy, you may want to read it. Jake Mandel.
Oh, yeah. Oh, welcome from Duncan's world. I love Duncan, and I love every time we do something together. Yeah. Woo-woo stuff, meditation. How can I help the people around me who struggle without pushing teachers or lecturing at them? Some of the things that have helped me. This is a great question, Jake, and you may not like the answer, but I've talked about this before here, which is, there's a saying in the 12-step programs, attraction, not promotion. My experience of trying to teach or share teachings with my family is, oh, and I used to have all these fantasies when I started meditating, and it was bringing me so much joy and relief. And I would just picture my whole family lined up and meditating together, and I thought that would happen. I'm talking about my family of origin too. No, nobody was really interested until a number of years later, my dad said, you seem more peaceful than any of us. Is that because you meditate? So the curiosity that people will have about you, Jake, as you continue to learn and put the teachings into practice, you're going to change. And you're going to change in ways that people who love you will recognize. And they're going to be curious about those changes. Like, what are you doing? Are you on drugs? What are you doing? They're going to want to know. And that's what we would call a teachable moment, when somebody is actually curious and asks you. And it may not happen for a while, but just keep at it. Keep coming back to nowness, keep coming back to your sense of, how helpful this is for you. And the more you do it, the more you become attractive in that way. And you don't have to worry about sharing the teachings, which all of us, when we start out, want to do. It's natural. When something is helpful to us, we want to share it with the people we care about, right? So yeah, thank you for that. And as for, Oren having teachings on meditation and pain, John Kabat-Zinn was the one who first did the science about how mindfulness can help chronic pain. And pain that's lasted for this many months, Alana, you can call it chronic. It doesn't mean it's going to last forever, but it's been going on now. I don't know how long ago you left LA, but it's been going on for a while. So you might want to also take a look at John's book, Full Catastrophe Living, which was the inspiration for the MBSR class. And Christiana is starting a mindfulness-based stress reduction class, which is the program that John created and that I helped him with in the early days. She's starting it in September, and she's just terrific. So if you can sign up for that class, I think it would really, really help your pain, Alana. And so I'm grateful to whoever wrote that about Oren, because it reminded me of John and MBSR, and that is a huge resource for people who are suffering from chronic physical or mental pain. Okay.
Trudy, I can make the announcements now while we're waiting for more questions.
Sure, go for it.
Okay. So hi, everyone. I'm Akemi. I'm InsightLA's community and volunteer coordinator, and I wanted to share some upcoming events and groups with you. We have an awesome Essentials of Mindfulness class. This one will be taught by JD Lloyd and Nico Carey.
Who are wonderful, by the way.
Yeah, they're awesome. So if you're a beginner to meditation and mindfulness, or you're experienced but want to brush up on the fundamentals, this is going to be a great 6-week offering starting this Thursday. The link is in the chat. And then I also wanted to give a shout out to our 2 racial identity-based affinity groups, Mindful of Whiteness and the People of Color Sangha, and both meet on Fridays every week. I've heard really wonderful things about the Mindful of Whiteness practice group. Obviously, I haven't been myself, but I heard it's really, really awesome. And the POC Sangha is great. Thomas Davis leads that. Lastly, InsightLA is a nonprofit experiencing financial hardship during COVID. We're trying to make sure we can hold on to our beloved spaces, centers, and we rely on the generosity of our community. So thanks to everyone who's been donating, and really highly recommend getting involved with the monthly sustainership. Even a small amount has a big impact. So the link to donate is also in the chat. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Kemi. And could you post the link for Christiana's MBSR class? Because I know it was just posted on the website, I think yesterday or the day before.
Okay, yeah, I'll find it.
Okay. So Sharon, Kemi will post that for you. So would anybody else like to offer anything or ask anything? It's a quiet group this morning. I'm just guessing everyone is so peaceful and present. And anyway, feel free.
Trudy,
Yes.
it's Clark of Clark and Robert.
Oh, I'm so happy to see you both. I didn't connect with Robert when we tried a while back and we missed each other. So I've been wondering how you're doing.
Well, things are kind of floating along and evolving. Not really much change from where we were with our son Spencer.
Right.
But I'm thinking about your theme of effort and how it relates to the life experience of being a parent and being in my 6th decade of being alive. And I think the effort, life is giving me this new approach on effort that normally up to this decade, I'd say effort was, as you say, I have to get revved up and go do what I know I have to do. And now being a parent and having a child that is not under my control and having to accept that, effort is about allowing the world to change and be what it needs to be, even though all my instincts are, oh no, I know how to do this and how to handle this. I need to make it go this way or that way. And so my effort, the effort really is not revving up. The effort is having to sit with the discomfort of recognizing that the world is a lot more changing and a lot more changeable than I want to accept.
Yeah.
And it's a great phase to be in. It's a great thing, but it's a really distinct kind of effort, is to kind of keep stepping away from all the instincts I've built up as a parent and a human being all these years, to say, you know, I need to step away from them and let the world be as mysterious as it's going to be.
Yeah, and that's really beautiful. Thank you for saying that, Clark, because there's a next step too, which is beginning to trust the wisdom of the intelligence of life, and that life and the wisdom that's created life may have something completely different in mind or in store for us than, you know, what we know in our knowing should happen and what looks like it should happen. And I also want to appreciate and congratulate you for coming to this when your son is still, what, in his early 20s? Is that?
Yeah, he's just 20.
Yeah, just 20. That's what I thought. Because it took me so many more years to come to this. My daughter is just turned 53. And, you know, all those years when I knew best and judged this and that and the other thing, they went on too long, you know, and I can see this sort of, it's almost like a reflex of defending herself or recoiling from what she imagines is going to be my advice. I don't give advice that anymore, but there were so many years when I did, you know. So I just really appreciate that you're having this insight early in his life.
Yeah, I mean, as a parent, it's a certain kind of chaos that you're willing to allow. And maybe we do that in our lives in other places, that we really want to control it and direct our lives. And that gets to be burdensome on its own in some ways. So this is a new kind of effort to say, you know, allowing and embracing chaos a little bit to see what, as you say, to see what it's teaching us, to see what it's showing us. And yeah, our son, in one part of this, our son seems to be saying he never felt in control of his life in a way that he's satisfied with. So now he's trying to build that relationship, whatever it's about. And only he can do that. And so to allow that to happen it's just nerve-wracking and you know,
it's terrifying, let's say it.
yeah.
Terrifying. It really is hard to let go of our kids and grandkids. And I just want to say, I know Shannon has her hand up. I just want to say really quickly that what you're describing is really the core teachings of the 3 marks of existence, the core teaching of Buddhist philosophy and psychology, which is the first one, that we're not in control. This is the teaching of no self. It doesn't mean that we don't have a sense of ourselves as a being. It means we are not in control. And the teaching of impermanence, we don't know where it's going to lead, but we do know it will change. And the teaching about suffering, that life has it, and it's not because we've messed up. It's part of our human existence. So thank you. And we have a minute I guess a minute or two for Shannon, since you've had this and I've been blabbing.
Go ahead, Shannon.
It's fun. Everything that you just talked about kind of ties into what I was going to ask about, which is everything that I've been learning about mindfulness and stuff. I'm finding it really helpful in the role that I have with my mom. I feel like our roles have switched in the sense that I'm teaching her now, and like she's been suffering for so long. And as I figure out how to cope, alleviate my own situation, I look at her and I just want to share it with her. And so much of the time I receive something and immediately want to give it to someone, because I'm just like, everybody has to know about this. But I mean, is there a certain just amount of patience that has to come along with that, of just allowing someone else to have their experience and not feeling kind of the need to help? Is that like...
Yes, that's exactly right. Think of it this way, Shannon, even though your mom's, obviously a grown-up, but think of it this way, where just think of a toddler that's learning to walk, and think of patience this way. That toddler is going to fall down, fall on their bum, fall on their nose. Sometimes they're going to cry, but there is nothing that is going to stop that drive to learn to walk. They are going to walk. So do we feel impatient with them? Oh my God, you fell down again. No, we understand that that's the process of learning to walk. My first teacher used to say to us, fall down 100 times, get up 101 times. That's wise effort.
I like that.
Okay. So thank you everybody for coming, for your practice. We're going to sit for a moment, and then our wonderful moderators will unmute us so we can say goodbye. And be sure to look at the chat if you've been speaking, because there is a conversation that is happening. So let's just sit for a moment together. And yes, it's okay to look at the chat during that moment. So we return to the simplicity and reality of just being. with all of the chaos, the peace, the love, the hate, the joys, the sorrows that make up our experience of being. And at the end of a practice period like this, where we've studied some teachings and shared together, had a chance to meditate together, we offer our appreciation and gratitude with an act of the imagination. We imagine that we are sharing whatever goodness came from this time together with all beings everywhere, without exception, with our families, our moms, everyone that we would like to share with. We do it freely in our hearts. May we and all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. And may we be happy and really discover and turn toward the causes for happiness in this life. So thank you, everybody. I hope you're unmuted now. And we can say hi and goodbye to each other until next week.
Thank you, Trudy.
So,
Thank you,
thank
Trudy.
you. Thank you for your practice. Thank you.
Bye, all.
Moderators.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
Have a good week.
Thank you, Trudy.
Everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Take care of
Thank
yourself.
Trudy.
And
Wear
everyone.
your
you.
mask. Be
Thanks,
careful.
Trudy.
Thank you, Trudy.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Akemi.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Emmy, Ran, Kathy. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Trudy.
Have a wonderful week.
Love you.
The couch.
Oh, there you are, Alana. Hi.
Hi.
I'm going to show you something.
Hi, Jim.
Hi, Karen. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Robert.
Hi.
Oh my God.
Robert, hi.
Nice to see you. Hi, Kathy.
You don't know who's there. Hi.
Robert, you have a different background.
We're in Maine.
Oh, I'm like, it's not so colorful.
I'm in Washington. I'm up in the mountains here.
Oh,
I
beautiful.
can't even see you.
It's
Oh,
so
there you are, Kathy. Hi. Oh my God.
Enjoy Maine. I'll see you guys soon.
All right.
Where in Maine are you?